guess I will start by introducing myself. My name's Sarah and I work with Building Beats. And I want to present a new segment called The Beginner's Perspective, where I, someone who has very little experience, is trying to learn more about music and everything related with our teaching artists and other people. And essentially, hopefully, to get information out of this and use it to take my music making a bit more seriously. And I guess we'll start off with Jess today, also known as PlayPlay. Do you want to
Yeah.
about yourself?
Um, yeah, so I am PlayPlay, and I DJ and produce under that name. I've been DJing for like 11, 12 years and got into everything by DJing first. And then moved into producing like maybe 7 or 8 years ago. Yeah, and I've been teaching with Building Beats for 3 years.
Very cool. I guess I want to start off by asking, was there like a certain moment where you kind of decided to dedicate more time to music? Like, did you hear a certain song or did you have a certain experience or is there anything in particular?
Well, yeah, I've just always been obsessed with music. I actually grew up um, recording mixtapes on a boombox in my room when I was like 8 or 9.
Very
There would be like music playing on the radio, and I would record it when I liked the song and then stop the tape afterwards, and then would just like make these little compilations way before I knew anything about like DJing or mixtape culture or anything like that.
I love
Um, yeah, and then, when I was a teenager, I would be like always the one trying to like micromanage the music at the parties. And like I'd be like over like let me look at your CD tower like and yeah, so it's been an always thing for me.
very nice.
There wasn't like a specific moment, but there was a specific moment where I finally found the means to learn how to actually do the technical part,
Mhm.
and that was I found a mentor, um, and yeah, it's just like it was pretty hard to find at first because when I really wanted to DJ, I was like 16, 17, but it was a total boys club,
Yeah.
so I wasn't able to like really get in and like do anything until later on in life after I'd had like a career or two. And then suddenly I found this person who she would like DJ at the bars around town. And I would always like, I was always on the dance floor. I've been in clubs my whole life. Basically, like I love dancing, but I saw her and started like following her out with like her records, asking her questions, and then she was like, "You want to learn DJing, don't you?" I was like, "Yeah." So that's how I got into it. Production wise, I did it all on my own, like just lots of YouTube, lots of courses online, whatever I could find for free, like
So very much
Coursera.
self-taught in that regard.
Um, yeah, did it all myself. Like I didn't get any formal training with the production.
Got it. I mean, did this start as a hobby for you, or did you kind of, when you were really getting into it, did you know like this was
It
maybe?
was a hobby for like 2 seconds. Like music's always been like a passion of mine, and I always thought of it as a hobby. And I was at first gonna just be like a hobbyist, like DJ.
Mhm.
But then once I started getting gigs, and I just really was like, all right, no, this might be more than just that.
Mhm.
And I had a couple of careers, kind of. Well, first of all, graduate school, and then another career that just like wasn't working no matter what I did. And like no matter how hard I worked, like nothing would happen. But the DJ stuff like felt really easy.
Mhm.
Like there was a flow to it. So I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna like DJ and see if I could ever do that full time.
Yeah.
And it worked out for a while. And that's when I was like, all right, I actually want to start making my own music too.
Mhm.
And that has been kind of the path of least resistance for me. And I knew pretty early on it was going to be a career.
Very nice.
Yeah.
Very cool. I guess following up with that, I feel like when people decide to turn this into a career, they feel like, and I don't know if this is a new development, but they try and like develop a brand and identity to like associate with. And I'm not sure if that's just because of how prevalent social media is and how important it is on social media.
Hmm.
But did you think you had to go through that process, or were you just like, I'm here for the music? This is
Oh
when I
no,
was
I
dating Jordan.
definitely I was stressed out. I remember I was stressed out about like getting a name. And at first I just like I don't know how why I came up with my name PlayPlay because I was I don't know, I was just kind of like in my head sometimes like I still say this thing we used to say in elementary school. Sorry, it was a large truck. And it was just if someone if you're like trying to brag on someone or um compliment them, I guess,
Mhm.
like say they did a good job, we would be like, go Jess, it's your birthday, not for real though, just for play. And that is
Yes.
where the name came from. It was like the first thing that popped in my head when I was thinking of a name, because no one really says that anymore, that phrase, but I
Mhm.
remember it was such a big thing when I was in school.
Yeah.
Or maybe they do say it, I don't know, I'm not in school anymore, but yeah. And so it was just kind of it's like an earworm that has never left, so I like
Mhm.
thought about it and I was like, ha, play. And I was gonna just have that as like a placeholder and then come up with like a more professional name later, and then that one kind of stuck. And for like a year I was like, maybe I should change my name, blah blah blah. And then I was like, nah, because people started calling me play instead of my real name.
Mhm.
Like just
Yeah.
in passing, and I was like, oh, okay, I can't change this.
Yeah. Can't go back
um
now.
yeah, it's like I am, and so I branded myself.
Play. It is official. It is permanent.
Hmm. Permanent.
Love that.
Yeah, even if I do change names, like I'll still stick with that one too.
Always formerly known as
I actually just keep creating,
Play.
that's how I do it,
Uh, you creep what?
side projects under different
That's the
names.
loophole. That's what it is.
Hmm.
Very nice. Now, would you say, in regards to like producing music, has your sound changed over the years? And like, did you go through a lot of self discovery over time, or were you kind of just like have one area that you really love, or do you kind of just use your side experiments to go through them all?
Yeah, it's funny because I was actually going over some really old songs recently, like stuff I made in like 2016, 15. And I was like, I still like this. Yeah, I'm like, I don't hate it. Like there's some stuff I've made where I'm like, ooh, but like a lot of this stuff, it's like, and I've been trying to like describe what my sound is like, and it's very, very, very like diverse genre wise. But I do have some like pretty consistent elements in my tracks, and that is bass and like something that's danceable,
Mhm.
um,
That's really all you
high energy. But it's a mix of lots of different genres. I really like percussion,
Yeah.
and so yeah, I'm starting to like listen to my songs now and be like, oh yeah, I do have like this kind of sound that's like kind of consistent.
Hmm.
Things I'm drawn to, and it's just from like all the influences I've had as a music nerd over the years, I think are coming out in my music production now. So it was like at first I was like trying to find like my sound, like I wanted to be unique, but now I'm like, yeah, I just started making tracks without thinking about it, and the sound, your sound emerges after a while.
Hmm.
It's like a consistent thing that's like in your head of like things you like, that just starts coming out more consistently the more you put out. So
Yeah.
yeah, so the answer is I have lots of different genres, lots of different sounds.
Not putting yourself in a box then.
Yeah, and I think my sounds have definitely changed with the times. And it's just kind of like I am like subtly influenced by the things I'm listening to at the time. So that's definitely part of it. And same with my DJ sets. Like you can tell with my DJ sets in 2012, like it's like a lot of the stuff I was listening to then, and now in 2020, it's a lot of stuff I'm listening to now. So I try to keep it fresh with a few throwbacks.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Be consistent that way.
Mm-hmm.
I guess as you were going through this process of DJing and producing music, how do you feel like you gained a following? Was it just through playing all these shows? Was it, I don't know, a lot of people talk about like online chat rooms and stuff. Like, I feel like there's a lot of ways to really get connected with people.
Yeah, I started by DJing a bunch of benefits because I was like, oh, that's low pressure. I'm not getting paid and I'm helping out, so that's great. I DJ a lot of house parties, and I
Mhm.
think I did well enough to where people were like, "Oh yeah," like they like my song selections. My mixing was like okay, but it's still, like it that takes practice to like really get the mixing down. So that was a process, right? And so by the time I'd gone through that process and was playing out, I started getting a following that way. And then when I started releasing music, I remember because I was like, I'm releasing some really weird music. Like, no one's going to be into this. I'm such a freak. But there is like some other freaks out there that really liked my music. So it was like, I met people that way. And then these people actually had become producers, and we were just kind of on the same wavelength, and we were still in touch.
Mhm.
So, yeah, and then I'll find like some of my tracks I made like 4 or 5 years ago, like don't get much shine when I release it, and then like later someone finds it, and then it has another go around, um, you know.
Mhm.
So I was like really discouraged with some of my tracks, but I would just like seem like it flopped, right? But
Mhm.
and I was like, oh, no one gets me, I take it real personally when it's my music production because
Yeah,
it's
of
like
course.
coming from me. But then like like 4 or 5 years later, suddenly people are like, oh, this track, like it's
Mhm.
so weird. And then some have been good. So it just kind of depends. But yeah, the following has mainly been, um, it's been a mix of like my social media presence, IRL friends, and like, when I'm DJing, like people that come to my parties, and um, networking, just like a whole bunch of things. And just like being like time, just like
Mhm.
having done this for a while.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like if you keep going for like long enough, like you're gonna get a following and like you're persistently like
Mhm.
doing the work, like you'll get
Putting
some kind of
yourself out
following.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gotcha. I thought of a question while you were speaking. Now I'm trying to remember what it was. I'm trying to think. Oh yeah. So in regards to like when you started producing, were you like driving yourself crazy trying to like mix it and like get it to a point where you wanted to release it, or were you kind of just at a point where you're like, I'm just going to put this out there and see what the response is? Because I feel like people go through that approach differently, and so I'm just curious what your experience was.
Oh yeah, I have an experience with this. So I started producing, maybe I started in like 2012, like in grad school. I like spent the whole summer, instead of working on my thesis, I was like doing all these dubspot tutorials and like Ableton 101 classes and stuff. Um I didn't release anything until 2015 or 16. So 3 years of holding back, just because I was so paranoid that my mixes wouldn't be good enough, that my tracks weren't good enough, they weren't ready yet. And like listening back to them, like some of them, yes, they were not ready, but a lot of them were.
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, um, I didn't know that like I didn't know some of the things about mixing right away either.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so yeah, I spent a long time sitting on my tracks, and I tend to still do that. Like I have um a lot of unreleased tracks that I'm just like clinging on to because I'm like, oh, it's not perfect yet. So I still struggle with that, honestly. But
Mm-hmm.
there have been some things where I'm like, nah, I'm just gonna go ahead and put it out. And it's been good that I put it out.
Mm-hmm.
So
There's a nice balance of both then.
yeah.
That's what I believe. Um, I guess my final question would be, what advice would you give to your younger self, like when you were just starting out? What are
Hmm.
the main things you wish you knew going into this?
Um, that I was gonna be in it for a while, so I can just like chill. um, yeah, because at the time when I first started, I was like, oh, I'll probably only be relevant for a couple of years, and then my time will pass, and and I'm
Yeah.
like, that's not like, no, this is not a sprint; it's a marathon.
Mm-hmm.
So um, yeah, I guess I would tell. I don't know, but it was so fun when I was in the learning stage and just constantly like learning and learning and learning and like not knowing where this was all going. That was kind of fun though.
Yeah.
But I guess I would just tell myself, to do this because it's fun to be creative and not for any like egotistical reasons or like to um like yeah, do it for myself, I guess.
Hmm.
Like make music for myself, like, and not for what I think other people would like.
Hmm.
Yeah. And that's like when I make music for myself and for like just being, I mean, it's kind of like writing when you're writing for yourself, or the most creative things tend to come out at that point when you're not thinking like, oh, this would be a nice club track, it sounds like so and so, this will be good, like that's the drums they use, like like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Which it's nice to have a framework sometimes to bounce off of, um but yeah, that weird stuff I was putting out, like had I known, like people would be into it eventually. I think I'd say like keep going with that weird stuff.
Mhm. And they don't be dismissive about if something like picks up right when you release it. Like, who knows when it's time to
Yeah.
come, kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes it's like, I mean, I'm not saying this is like the case for me necessarily, but I know a lot of people put things out. It's like a little ahead of its time,
Hmm.
and then people catch up to that wavelength
Yeah.
several years down the line. They're like, oh, actually, this is cool. Whoa. I mean, I've done that with several artists where I'm like, wow, like was way ahead of its time, and no one appreciated it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so like, yeah, that's my biggest advice is just like, if you've got weird stuff like that where you're like, I don't think anyone's going to understand this,
Mhm.
like, I would definitely make that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Play around with that. Play around with the weird little thoughts and ends.
Hmm.
All right. Well, I guess that's all the questions that I have for you today.
All right.
Do you
Hope
wanna?
this helped.
Yeah, it did. Do you want to talk about like where people can find you and all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, on Instagram, I'm at PlayPlay. The last, or it's Play, and then there's three Y's at the end of the second play, because the other name was taken. On I'm gonna look this up real quick. On SoundCloud, I almost said Soundtrap. On SoundCloud, I'm DJ PlayPlay.
Mhm.
SoundCloud.com/DJ PlayPlay. On Instagram, I'm DJ PlayPlay. On Facebook, I'm DJ PlayPlay. Um, and yeah, find
Great.
me, follow
Well,
back.
I'll play. And I guess for me, I just really have Instagram, and I am Disco Baby, all one word, just spelled the way it sounds. Who knows? I might change that at some point. Sounded fun at the time. And
Oh
yeah, so
yeah, what's your producer name?
Disco Baby was like cute, but I'm like, I feel like that puts me in a box, and I don't know if I want to be in that box.
Gotcha.
We're gonna spend some time on it. I'm not
Cool.
there yet. Maybe that'll be how my article ends, is me
You
coming to
pick a
terms.
name.
Yes, that could be good.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's all I've got. Hopefully, I'll have an article up soon on Building Beats BB Connect. Thank you for joining me.
Of course. Thank you.
Bye.